Good morning, it's Lisa with Lisa Heal Yourself, and today I want to clarify a video that I made yesterday. Someone called me out on it, and I'm actually glad they did because they were really good points. So I made a video called "The Only Way to get rid of symptoms, overwhelming symptoms, or really bad chronic illness," and that was just not true. So I changed the title of that video, but I do want to clarify what I meant by that. So when we have overwhelming symptoms, whether they're physical or mental, and as someone who had over 200 symptoms, as somebody who was diagnosed mentally and physically with serious diseases, with serious diagnoses, I can speak to both the mental and the physical diagnoses that you get, whether it's anxiety, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, ADHD, whether it's in this bucket or whether you have a thyroid problem or low iron or mold toxicity or heavy metal toxicity or autoimmune conditions or the vast array of physical conditions, right? You may have diabetes, you may have any number of chronic health problems, right? You may have poor kidney function, you may have poor liver function, you may have a variety, a handful. So in no way did I mean to say that if you calm your nervous system and you go from parasympathetic to sympathetic, you'll be healed, because that is just not true. But what I mean is if you don't settle your nervous system, you cannot get the other things to work for you. So there's a variety of things that you need to do in order to heal, right? We need the basics of health first: diet, sleep, we need nutrition, supplements, lifestyle. So there's so many basics. I group this in the basics of health, and I go over this in a program I created that's not released yet. But anyways, the basics, we need to get those all on point. Sunlight, everything, okay? So this is basic stuff. Then we have advanced healing protocols. Those are specific protocols for specific conditions. So if it's mental health, or if it's cancer, or if it's autoimmune conditions, or metabolic conditions, whatever it is, there's advanced protocols, right, that we can do. Sometimes they get into the biohacking world. Sometimes they get into, a serious detox program, heavy metal detox program, or mold toxicity, or we're looking at unburdening our organs. So there's a lot of things that we need to do. In the mental health, there's a lot of treatments, right, that we can do. Now, I'm not talking medication here. I never talk pharmaceutical medication because I think that always compounds usually and makes the problem worse. And specifically in the case of mental health, it absolutely makes it worse, and it does not help. Okay, it gives you a bigger problem on your hands. So yes, there are many things from the basic level and then from a really advanced protocol level that you can do and that you are going to need to do in order to heal your condition. But if your nervous system is set to danger mode, and yes, sometimes you physiologically cannot help that. I know when I was in the throes of complete disarray, mental health breakdown, physical breakdown, completely non-functional, couldn't walk, talk, see, think, anything. I know that if somebody would have said to me, this is mind body, and if you calm your nervous system, you're gonna get better, I literally would have punched them. I would have screamed. I would have thought they were living on a different universe. It wasn't until I did get better and I had hindsight on my side to see that all those things that I was doing continually, day after day after day, from the basics to the advanced protocols, were never going to actually get me there unless I brought in that big piece, which is mind-body healing, but specifically nervous system regulation. So I did all those things, and they were helping, they were working, they were doing things, but it was never going to make that jump without nervous system regulation. So I think it's key. It's absolutely key, because when the nervous system settles and when it gets out of danger mode, when it's not getting that constant danger mode that keeps you anxious, that keeps so many symptoms, going and on high alert and in the highest categories, that you can never really get all these other things to work for them unless you work on this piece. Now, sometimes these other protocols will work to the point that they'll settle your nervous system enough, right? They'll give you physical relief or mental relief enough that just intuitively your nervous system does settle. But it's the settling of that nervous system, no matter how you get there, whether you're getting there from the protocols or whether you're getting there from a mind-body approach, it's the settling of this nervous system that is in effect going to be the thing that puts your body in a position where now it's able to heal. It's able to use the protocols, to use everything that you're doing to make progress, to get you there. So I hope that was a good way of explaining it. So one of the things that's so confusing about chronic illness or raging symptoms is often it's a number of things, right? You may be experiencing like mental symptoms, and you also may be experiencing physical symptoms. And so often we get our blood drawn, we get checked over, and we see, is there anything obvious, right? Like, am I completely depleted in B12 or iron, or is there something that I can take, that I can do? Is there something obvious? Am I missing something? Like, can someone point to a tumor? Can someone point to a liver failure? Can someone point to something physical? And then now I know where to put my advanced protocols. Now I know where to put my energy. Is it mold? So we investigate and we find out, like, is there something obvious that I can now focus on and that I can do, along with all the other stuff. Often in chronic illness, we don't find these things, or we find a few things, we work on them for a number of years even, and it doesn't improve the condition, the overall condition. We also have, mental health and anxiety and depression and the brain fog and all the other things that go along with metabolic disorders and nervous system disorders, right? So sometimes when these things cross over, it can be confusing, or it can be hard to know what to do specifically. And that's why the basics of health are for everyone, and the advanced protocols are specifically for conditions that apply to you, right? Because if you have an iron deficiency, there's no point in doing mold detox. Or if you have a mold problem, you're not going to get better by taking vitamin B12 or something like that, right? Like, I'm just giving you basic examples here. Nothing's going to work unless you hone in on what exactly it is. Often we don't know, or often they can't find it, or the things that they point to, we do them and it doesn't make improvements, and then we're left not knowing what to do. And in these cases, often it's nervous system regulation that must take place before any of the other things that we're doing can work. And a lot of my dogs, I like to play in the morning, so hang on. All right. Okay, I've got one of them, so now they can't play together. So a lot of times people, doctors, any kind of therapist, even yourself, you'll miss nervous system regulation as a key treatment, because you're doing the physical things, you're doing the mental things, you're doing all the things, you're like, I've done everything, right? But people are missing one of the key elements, which is when your nervous system is in a sympathetic dominant state, it's impossible to heal. It is impossible to heal, even though you're doing everything. So sometimes you cannot, in the case of extreme anxiety or something that keeps your nervous system in that state, right? Like something physical And you can't think it away. You can't think your heartbeat to slow down. You can't think the feeling or that ramped up feeling. And trust me, I know I lived with this ramped up feeling like I couldn't settle for about 6 years, okay? I was moving at warp speed, my brain, my mind, everything. So I know that sometimes trying to do the nervous system regulation work, like breathing or, calming your nervous system with hot baths, hot teas, walks, just regulating nice walks out in nature, or meditation, guided meditation, or something like TRE, where we do some shaking. Any kind of physical thing that you can do, and it doesn't work, you end up just feeling frustrated and giving up because you think it's impossible. But it's not impossible. We only feel like it is. But keeping the mind calm, not reacting and responding to the symptoms over time will help that button that's permanently turned on turn off. And the reason people give up is because it's not quick and you don't notice results. You do these practices day in and day out. You settle, you don't let yourself respond and react, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work, and it doesn't work, and it doesn't work. Like no change, no physical change. But eventually you start to see the physical change, and once we are able to turn that off, then all the other things that you're doing for healing can really flow and take place. And people miss this because it takes a long time, because it's not a simple answer. So it's often missed, and that's why I say it's a key. So going back to the physical and mental things that you can do, obviously there's the basics of healing, there's the advanced protocol. If you're suffering with mental health conditions, and the reason why I went on a carnivore diet immediately when I started to get brain fog and exhaustion, and I started to get mental symptoms, right? This anxiety, and I started to get brain fog and these types of things. And I thought, I have to immediately go, not even keto, but keto would be great, but carnivore, I have to get my body on ketones. I have to work with my brain, right? I have to use this source of fuel because I know that's helpful for mental conditions, for any kind of mental or nervous system problem that works through the brain regulation. Any of these things like Alzheimer's or brain concussions or anything that you would lump into that bucket. So, but because I have physical things like total exhaustion, and my body is, working with a virus, and it was completely depleted, and there was other physical things going on, I knew that I had to break that carnivore diet and just start eating whole nutrient foods, basically vegetables, a little bit of vegetables, still heavy meat diet, but I wouldn't be in ketosis anymore because I would be giving my body a whole range of nutrient dense food because it needed the fuel, it needed the nutrients in order to do this. So sometimes it's a game that we're playing, like, are you depleted? Do you need nutrients? Do you need these nutrients in your body and these electrolytes and these minerals and these vitamins? Then you have to get them from the diet. But if you aren't depleted in things, then you can do the ketogenic diet and really focus on the brain health. But sometimes things are conflicting, so it can be hard to know metabolically or anything else what way to go, and it confuses people. But it needn't, because you can heal on any diet. And the most important thing, I believe, is regulating your nervous system. This is from hindsight. This is from years of doing it. And of course, that's not going to fix you, but that gets you to a spot where now you can fix what's wrong. And so sometimes these things work in tandem. Sometimes one comes before the other, or this one comes before this one. But yeah, we have to do all of it. But this is a key that people overlook. They really do overlook this. And I know I overlooked it. I didn't think it would work for me. For years and years, I just was so focused on the physical and what I could do and what I could take and what diet I could eat. that I wasn't really getting underneath to the trauma, to what was behind it. But more specifically, you can't get there in the mind-body approach, like to healing your trauma, to uncovering all this trauma and unraveling it, which really settles the nervous system, if you're in fight or flight, if you're in survival mode, if you're in danger mode. And sometimes your symptoms are so bad that you legit are in survival mode. And you'll never be able to do the mind-body work or the trauma healing work when you're in that state, because you're not thinking clearly, you're in a fight or flight. And so the first step, again, is to calm your nervous system. Once your nervous system's calm, you can do that journaling work, you can do the mind-body work, you can do the brain retraining, you can do all the mind-body exercises and the inner work that it takes. But when you're in survival mode and you're just surviving, you're in danger mode. Survival mode is danger mode. And you can't get out of that unless you get out of survival mode, get out of danger mode. And that means calming the nervous system. It means proactively, that is a first, and that's a key, because nothing else can work. So this is a balancing act, but I want everybody to know why I made that video yesterday and why I stressed it as the most important thing, or the key. And of course, there's a variety of other things that, yes, you must do depending on what your condition is or what your symptoms are. But none of that matters unless you can settle your nervous system, unless you can trust yourself, unless you can believe, unless you can soothe yourself, unless you can calm it down, because you'll be continually in danger mode, continually in survival mode, and you won't be making good decisions. You can't do the inner work, and nothing else really, from diet to all the basics to any of the advanced, make much of a difference, unless it's something obvious that you know you have, and that advanced protocol will really work for you. But again, if your nervous system is high and if you're in fight or flight the entire time, it's still going to be hard to heal, because your other symptoms that come along with danger mode and with fight or flight aren't going to go away until that, right? Because that's a protective mechanism. That's the communication, and it fires all kinds of crazy stuff that may not even be part of the problem. It's all these periphery symptoms that seem crazy and real, and like alarm bells are going, and those don't go away unless you calm the central nervous system. So regulating the central nervous system is a critical key. So I hope I've explained this well. And yes, we do have to focus on everything else as well. People with mental health conditions or brain disorders, people with diabetes, people who are overweight, people with any kind of metabolic disorder can really benefit from the carnivore diet, the keto diet, from using ketones, to building their mitochondria health, to taking supplements that enhance the mitochondria, that grow the mitochondria. These types of things I would recommend. Now, on the other hand, if you've lost a ton of weight, if you feel like you are depleted, malnutrition, things like fasting or carnivore or keto can actually exacerbate certain physical conditions. They can actually make it worse. And in my case, that happened many times, depending on what my symptoms were, right? If you're having, if you're having certain disorders, thyroid disorders, chronic fatigue syndrome, if you are depleted nutritionally, if you're having low iron, if you're having a lot of weakness, if you're having dizziness, if you're having a lot of these problems, fasting, carnivore, keto is not going to be your friend at that point. You need a full, rich, almost Weston A. Price paleo type diet where you are getting your nutrients built up. You need the nutrients, you need the vitamins, you need the minerals, you need your body to be able to work, because it is using all these resources, right? Constantly, it's looking for the resource. So it's not just trying to fix one metabolic problem, it's trying to do everything. So So there's different things that you're going to want to do depending on your conditions, and sometimes they overlap and sometimes it's confusing. But with everything, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, when you are in fight or flight, when your nervous system is dysregulated, you're in danger mode, and you can't think clearly, you're not balanced, it's almost going to be impossible for you to heal. You're not going to be sleeping properly. Your anxiety is going to get worse. All of these things, all of these symptoms heighten and make everything worse. And so that's really where we need to use our will and our power because we do have willpower. We are not the body, we are not the mind. And we can step back from that and be the observer. We can, even in the worst, and I've done it, even in the worst of the worst of the worst chaos from physical and mental symptoms, you can not respond, not react, and detach and just allow to feel. And as you do that, you will feel these things morph, change, settle. And sometimes they won't change and they won't morph, but you can feel your energy or your resistance to them or your fear of them diminish. And all of that's necessary in healing. It's so critical. I cannot tell you from going through this for years and years. The merry-go-round doesn't end often until we really take this seriously. So it seems like an airy-fairy thing to do. It seems like it's not going to be helpful, but it is one of the most helpful things that you can do, no matter whether you're dealing with mental, physical, a combination. No matter what the symptom is, it's going to be heightened if your nervous system is heightened. So I hope this video has been helpful. I hope it cleared up some of the questions from yesterday's video, and I will see you in the next one.